Thank you all for coming. I'd like to thank the Cassandra and the Tierrasanta Village for having us here today. We are the Senior Advisory Council, and as you can see, there's 11 of us experts here waiting for your questions. And we're going to present some information of each of our expertise, and then we will have the ability for you to ask any question that you would like. And there is no question too small or too big that we can't handle. So on your chairs, you have a brochure that has information on all of us and what we do and services that we have. There's also a sheet called the official raffle entry form. Basically, it's some information we'd like you to evaluate how it went for you, and then we'll turn this in and we'll have a little raffle at the end. So with no more further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator extraordinaire, Candace Monroe, who will be taking us through this nice little 90-minute session.
Hi, I'm Candace Monroe, and I help families gain access to the VA aid and attendance. What does that mean? I basically do all of the paperwork and corral all of your information to make sure that your claim goes through successfully. I'm a part of this panel too, so let's hear from Kimberly.
We'll probably have opportunities. My name is Kim Phillips. I work with Dignity Memorial. So I help families with all their final expenses or final decisions, whether it be cemetery or funeral. Not everybody might not need cemetery, but all of us need a funeral. People go, well, I just want cremation. Still considered a funeral, but anyways, just thank you for having us.
I'm Tom Lawler. I'm an estate planning attorney, wills, trust, probate. I also work Candace aid and attendance at Medi-Cal. So we're a full service, been around since 1987.
Good afternoon. My name is Erica Sell, and I own Harmony Home Medical Supply. And we're a home medical equipment and modification company. We have a beautiful showroom right on Claremont Mesa Boulevard near to Tierrasanta, where you can see everything you need to age in place.
Okay.
Can you hear me? You can probably hear me without the loud talking. Project. Hi, my name is Rick Goodman. This is my partner, Kim Payton. We are real estate agents that have been specially trained through the National Association of Realtors to help seniors. We've also co-founded a company called Housing Advocates for Retired People, and which is specializes in protecting seniors when they go through their transitions.
Sandra Bredesen. I'm with Bankers Life. So when you think of me, think of long-term care insurance. It's an insurance where you can get help at home. If you want to stay at home, it's a way to do that. And I have different plans for that. I also help with Medicare enrollment if somebody needs education on that as well.
Hi, my name is John Correll, and I am with Accurate Reverse Mortgage Corp. And what I do is I educate people on ways they can access their home equity or some of the wealth in their house for people who want to stay in their home and access some of that money.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us here. My name is Melanie Delgado. I am the owner of Right at Home, and we are a non-medical in-home care provider. So we can provide caregivers in your home if you need additional assistance. We are also a licensed or we're registered with the VA that we also can help with providing VA care. So if you have any veterans, we can help you through that process.
Hi guys, my name is Mike Acuna. I am the president and founder of Second Home. We are a placement agency that is a free service for when you can't stay at home anymore and you need to find a new home. So assisted living, retirement communities, boarding care homes, memory care living. We walk you through that process from A to Z.
And he's waiting to be a new dad. So any moment now. My name is Michelle Burkhart, and I'm a licensed professional fiduciary here in California. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what fiduciaries do or don't do. Does everybody know what a fiduciary does? Most people don't. Okay, fiduciary can be aligned with investment counselors. It can be aligned with attorneys, accountants, and the Professional Fiduciary Association. What we do is we have to be licensed in California. We are ruled by the Probate Code of California. So in order to get licensed in California, we need to take 30 hours of training in either conservatorships or trusteeships. We have to get, then we have to take two certification tests. One is national and one is from California. So unless you can pass those, you can't really be a licensed fiduciary. So what we do ongoing is we help people as an individual neutral person that can help you either if you have a conservatorship, a special needs trust, or as a trustee. There's usually two tracks. I took the trustee because I have a lot of business experience, about 35 years. And so essentially as a trustee, if you were incapacitated and you had a trust, then it would be someone like me that would succeed you or help you if you're incapacitated. So I would welcome any questions that you might have down the line, because it is a very misunderstood word and a lot of people don't really know what we do, but I'd be happy to answer any question.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you at home, how many are veterans in this room? Thank you for your service. How many are the spouses or surviving spouses of a veteran? Thank you. Thank you. So again, my program, the VA Aid and Attendance, can help provide or reimburse you for in-home care or assisted living. You'll find my information inside that packet. Also, I want to let you know, anybody in this group, we have our brochure inside your folder, and all the contact information for each one of our panelists can be found. Anybody have a question that they'd like to start off with? They want a little free legal advice, little real estate? Yes, ma'am.
So what you do, is it for veterans who've been injured in the course of service to get some medical help?
Excellent question. No, it's not. It comes from the same bucket of money because it's a disability pension. It's just designed for very special veterans and their surviving spouses, which means the real name of my benefit, they call it aid and attendance, but the real name is non-service connected disability pension. That's a mouthful. So aid and attendance means you really need the aid and attendance of another person to live a healthy and safe life, either in your home or you decide to move to an assisted living and you get Mike to help you find a new home. So yes, no, it's open to surviving spouses where the traditional disability is not. It's veterans only. But you must be a wartime veteran, no matter where you were in the world, 1 day of active duty during a major military conflict, and at least 90 days of consecutive service, and an honorable or general discharge. And that's eligibility for the surviving spouse and the veteran. Anyone else have a question? Yes, ma'am.
My question is about long-term health care. I've belonged to CalPERS since I was 30. I thought ahead, but I'm still paying $983 every 3 months. And how does that kick in for me and help me? Because I've been paying so long, does it mean I get longer care? Or how does that work?
I would have to look at your policy because every policy is different. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Okay, we'll sit
She's
down and we'll
prepared.
review it. I do that a lot for people is I review their policy and call the company that they have the policy with just to verify the information because things have changed over the years. There's different companies that no longer are in California. They left California. They're out of the long-term care business. And then every year to 5 years, the policyholder gets an increase premium. And so we just have a conversation to see what works best for them.
She asked, how does the policy kick in if you don't have long-term care? If you do have long-term care?
Go to independent living or assisted living, how long do you have to be there for the policy to kick in?
Every policy would have a different elimination period. So I don't know what your elimination period, if it's 30 days, if it's 90 days. Most of the older policies are not at least 90 days, where you're on the hook for the first 90 days. And so sometimes what I do is I write a smaller policy to fill in that gap. So you have some coverage. And then it depends on what benefit amount you have per month or per day. So that's what I do. It's an individual, but a doctor has to actually take you out for long-term care. You can't do 2 of your activities of daily living to activate the policy on most policies. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you, Sandy.
Oh, okay. I'd be happy to sit down.
Feel free. Her number's in our brochure, plus her individual information is in that file you got. Call her directly. Who's next? Who has a question they'd like answered? Come on, we got an attorney. Oh, she's back. Okay.
I have a friend that's alone and now 88, has a trust and all that stuff, and named what would I say, the husband of her niece to be her executor. But I know she's not happy with that. So if she were to find a professional fiduciary, can you give me an idea of what the fees might be like?
Well, usually now there is a law that, at least in California, if a professional fiduciary has a website, then number one, they have to publish their fees. So usually what happens is, for example, she can consult with a fiduciary to see if that works with her. That may range, I would say, anywhere from 150 to maybe 250 for a consultation. Then most of the time there is a professional fiduciary fee where we're interacting with other like a state attorney or the accountant and that kind of thing, or doing our thing with our research of what we normally do. There's sometimes then another level in terms of administrative. So it wouldn't take that kind of information for a fiduciary to research, but you'd have an administrative. Similar to an attorney, they have multiple fees and costs. But anymore in California, if a person has a website, it should be published on the website. So again, it also depends on what somebody is doing. A lot of people will have a no fee consultation like myself, just to get an idea of if they can help you and go from there. So usually a woman called me the other day. She was very distraught, looking for a fiduciary. Her sister had passed away and she was the executor. And so the first thing I said to her at that point was, you probably need to go back to the attorney or get an attorney to review the information first before we would come in, because that way they could tell her what exactly her duties would be. Then she could get a fiduciary to help her walk through the other steps if she needed to. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Tom, do you want to speak to kind of a second part of her question regarding her displeasure with an already named individual inside that trust? How does that get navigated? She wasn't happy with did you say the trustee or the beneficiary?
Where there's different documents in your plan, typically, there's a trust. And so you'll have a successor trustee that steps in after you, the original trustee, can't serve. So if you are the person that is the trustor, grantor, settler, one that set up the trust, and you still have capacity, or this woman, they can always amend their trust to change the trustees at any time. But they have to have capacity. There you go.
So that's the important part you all want to pay attention to. Be careful who you name as your trustee, your person. Okay, who has a question?
I'm confused with the different names that you have. Like there's an executor and there's a fiduciary. So what's the difference between them?
I probably didn't finish up that earlier. So there's different technically fiduciaries for each document that you have. So in a trust, you have a trustee that acts on behalf of the trust. They're the trust fiduciary. You have an executor that acts on behalf of the will. They're the fiduciary of the will. When you have a trust and you have a will, the will's not doing too much in those cases. It's typically just sending assets that are outside of the trust, clothing, furniture, jewelry, books, cars, to the trust. And so the trust becomes what we normally think of as the will. That's where the assets are distributed. In a financial power of attorney, you have an agent who is the fiduciary that acts on behalf of that financial power of attorney. And the financial power of attorney is to cover the assets in the financial matters that are not part of the trust. So a good example is if you have an IRA or KEO, SEP, 401k retirement plan, that technically is a trust already. So you don't need to put that in your trust. In fact, you technically can't put it in your trust. So in that case, when you pass away, pardon me?
She's asking, can you,
Right.
she's questioning whether you can put an IRA in your trust or not.
Yeah. So there's two parts to that. One, you can have a trust own assets, and the others you can have the trust be the beneficiary of assets. So the trust cannot own the IRA. You have to own that while you're living. You could name the trust as a beneficiary of your IRA. Right? But an IRA is a trust already. It will avoid probate, so it doesn't need to be in the trust. But while you're living, if you became incapacitated, now you can't get at your IRA. And your trustee can't get at the IRA because it's not in the trust. So you have this agent under the financial power that does have the ability to access that IRA to make elections or withdrawals. They can also sign tax returns, deal with Social Security, IRS, Medi-Cal, Medicare, all kinds of financially oriented things that aren't really part of the trust. So that's the reason you want to have a financial power of attorney. And there's also healthcare directives. And the fiduciary and the healthcare directive is also called an agent. So it's a little confusing, but all these people are acting in wearing different hats in different things. And then some people can't find a good fiduciary because they don't have family members or they don't trust their family members. And so that's why we have people like Michelle that can step in. And we're seeing a lot more of that where professional fiduciaries are being used because they're just the smaller families, people aren't around, families aren't doing well together. So the professional steps in. They're not receiving any money from the estate. They have a job to do. They know how to do it. And it actually takes the pressure off a lot of these individuals. So if you name one of the children, invariably, by the time they're done, they might start out saying, well, I'm not going to take any money because I'm a beneficiary. And then they go, how much did you say I could take? Because their siblings are hounding them every day. And it does even cause problems between siblings and beneficiaries when one is in charge. And it's something that you may not want to do that to your child.
So to continue along that line, Michelle, then your position as a fiduciary who's not an attorney, but becomes an eligible independent third party when there might be confusion in the family.
Yes, luckily I'm also a credentialed mediator, so that helps a lot too. But normally a fiduciary, if you had a trust and you set it up and you said, okay, you're the trustee of your trust, and then you wanted me to be the successor trustee. In the event that you became incapacitated, then that one be a successor trustee would step in. And basically we work for you. So the beneficiaries may get some things down the line, but the person that we work for is the person that bring us on as a successor trustee. Our goal and our reason for being is to make sure that we work to your best interest. So for example, in those times of conflict with families, you may have beneficiaries that say, no, don't put her in this place because it's going to be too expensive. That's the decision that I would make, not the beneficiaries would make, because I would come in and look at your best interest. So that's how a fiduciary helps out.
I would use you only if I was incapacitated mentally.
Well, in terms of me being able to take over and execute, having access to the funds to make sure your care is there, that kind of thing. But as a successor trustee, I have several cases where I am a successor trustee, and the two people who are the trustees at this venture, I come in and I work with them to find out where everything is in case they were incapacitated and I had to come in. But usually my legal responsibilities come in if you cannot make those decisions on your own.
So,
If you pass
what
away.
about you? Well,
Well, they can't hear you at home, and it's probably an important question that everyone wants to know the answer. I'll hold it for you.
Well, no.
Let me
Yes, when-
reissue the question so the people at home know what she asked.
Right.
When do you come in? She's asking after she passes or before? When you're mentally good or not mentally good, whatever
Well,
that looks like.
It could be both, because after you pass, then someone needs to execute the desires of the trust. Everything is spelled out in the trust as to what needs to be done. So if you were incapacitated, even temporarily or for a long term or going forward, then the trustee could come in, the successor trustee could come in, correct, Tom? And take over the duties that you normally did as a trustee for your own trust. Correct? Yeah, okay.
Does that help your question? You've got her information, give her a call. She doesn't charge for a consult.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, it can be both times, in that sense, but essentially maybe it's a trust that goes on. For example, it's a trust that continues on after your passing, then the fiduciary would come in as a trustee and execute the desires of that trust. Or if you have your own trust and you cannot function as the trustee, that's when the fiduciary would come in and take over for you.
If it's just all too confusing, doesn't mean you're getting sent away, but maybe it's all too confusing. She can be that legitimate, independent third party.
so I have a trust set up and I have elected to have money paid out of the trust to have a person be the executor of my estate at my passing. So is that what you do? Or
That's a question for Tom to define.
Yes, this should be directed more towards Tom because you're talking about when you've passed. And I think Michelle's here for you because guys like Tom, they can get a little expensive. He already did the trust, right? So maybe you're,
She's talking about the other attorneys, I believe.
the other attorney's not Tom. He's an angel. He did my trust. Okay. He's a good guy. But maybe you need day-to-day help with your in-home care or making sure your money lasts. Fiduciary. Now she's got it. There you go. Especially if one of your family members cannot fulfill that for you. She's an independent third party that reports only to you.
if I've already appointed someone in my family to do that, like, what happens? Where do you fit in? Do you override that, or like my daughter doesn't want to do it?
That's the question for Tom. I think we sort of asked that earlier. So just pop it over again, Tom.
So you could name some of the, like Michelle, where she could be the successor trustee of your trust, the executor of your will. So when you say executive of your estate, when you have a trust, Your actual estate is really means your probate estate, what would go through probate. So if you have a trust, you really should not have a quote probate estate. So executor is something we've had, burned into our brains for years and years, and that's what we think of. But once you have a trust, the executor is only acts upon the will. And hopefully if you've done your estate plan correctly, you have all the things in the trust that should be there, the things that would be probatable, houses, bank accounts, limited partnerships, stocks, bonds, that kind of thing. So once those are in the trust, there's very little in the will, and the executor has very little due. But typically, she would act as the trustee of your trust, executor of your will, agent under your financial, and maybe do you act as agent under healthcare as well? Yeah. So each document has its own little niche that it covers. The trust doesn't cover everything. So you have various documents to cover everything, hopefully, so that you don't need to go to court. And that's really the idea of all these documents. And the trustee, she could step in as a current trustee while you're living if you couldn't do it. Or you might just get tired of doing it. You might be 99 years old and said, okay, I've done it long enough. I'm going to let Michelle take over. And you'd still be the boss. You'd say, oh, Michelle, I need you to pay these bills for me. And you could say, oh, I'm going to take it back over. So you're still the boss. But if you're incapacitated while you're living, depending upon what the trust says, in our trust, we say if one licensed physician states in writing that you're not capable of handling your affairs, that's enough to allow that next successor trustee then to walk into your bank with the doctor's letter, copy of the trust, their ID, and then get on your accounts and then be able to take care of your accounts. And again, when they're on your accounts, they're merely acting as fiduciary. They do not own any of those assets. They're acting on your behalf.
Does that answer your question? Or do you have more? We're gonna ask this lady's question. What's your question?
Well, first of all, I want to say I have too many questions for John on the reverse mortgage, something I'll have to talk to you separately. But I wanted to know that I do have a trust and I have some successor trustee that I don't know that my attorney set up for me. But who would be in charge of filing the 1041s and the tax returns and after I die and or finding a CPA for me? I'm pretty sure my CPA friend is gonna predecease me. So who handles that, finding a CPA to do those things,
So, yeah, that would be your successor trustee. Yeah, so the successor trustee is the person that generally they may not have all those skills. A lot of them can provide accountings and that type of thing, but if you need a tax preparer, they'll find that tax preparer. They'll find an attorney if needed. They'll find a financial planner if needed. They can hire someone to sell your house if that's what's needed or borrow against it. So that person is kind of the quarterback that steps in and does whatever is necessary.
Okay, what she's asking is, because the people at home won't hear this, sorry for that. She does not have a personal relationship with this person. Should she find somebody else? Or is it who's in charge of getting that CPA and the paperwork done again after your pass? Is that your question?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think Michelle said you can always find out. You can go to someone's website and get an idea. You can call them up and talk to them to see if you fit, what their ideas are. They give you comfort. So you have plenty of time to do all that. And I'd suggest that's a good idea.
Thank you, Tom. Moving on a little bit, we can always circle back around. I would guesstimate that most of the people in this room, it is their wish to remain in their home as long as possible or forever. So why don't we gear the conversation towards that, because we have some experts here that can help you with that. And we'll look at both sides of that coin. What does it look like? How do you manage staying at home and or maybe something happens or it's time to move on? What does that look like? What is that game plan? So maybe why don't we start with You mentioned you had questions for John. He does reverse mortgage. We've got Melanie. She provides in-home care, right at home, in-home care. Also, as my colleague, we work together with her clients that are eligible for the homemaker program, which is eligible only for veterans. And she can talk more about that. Then we've got Erica with Harmony Home Medical. So you'll hear acronyms like DME, and she'll tell you what that means. But these are the people you want involved with that plan if you're really trying to stay at home in the safest, best possible way. And then we can look at what maybe that transition looks like when that's no longer a good option. So who wants to start it off in our group? John, do you want to talk about reverse mortgage and what that means? Because I know it's very scary. People think the bank owns your house. The world's coming to an end when you pass away. And I think some of the rules have changed since Reagan started this. I'm not a mortgage specialist, so let John speak to that for a minute. And for those of you who own your home, this might be really important information for you.
Yeah, and if you have some questions, my information is in there. The best way is really to make an inquiry and have a conversation. But reverse mortgage is really a misunderstood product. There's negative connotations out there. People think the bank's going to take your house. Excuse me. And what a reverse mortgage really is in its nutshell is it's a specialized type of mortgage or loan that's designed for older homeowners who want to stay in their house and be able to access some of their equity that's in their house. I mean, real estate, realtors, everybody in this room knows real estate has exploded in value, but you can't spend that unless you sell your house or maybe get a loan against it. And what a reverse mortgage is designed, it's actually called a home equity conversion mortgage, which is the FHA version of a reverse mortgage. And that, a home equity conversion mortgage is actually the fancy name for a reverse mortgage. And that allows people to borrow against their house without having to make a monthly mortgage payment. So it's a mortgage against your home. And the difference between that and a regular mortgage is on a regular mortgage, you have to make regular monthly payments to the bank. If you don't do that, you can end up in foreclosure. With a reverse mortgage, there is finance charges on the loan, but you're deferring paying the loan back until there's a maturity event. And a maturity event would be something like the death of the last borrower, or when you sold the home, or if you failed to meet the loan obligations, which are pretty simple. They're like paying your taxes and your homeowner's insurance. But then people can access money to do all kinds of things like pay for a caregiver, consolidate debts, lower their monthly expenses, make home improvements, and they retain full ownership of their house throughout the loan process. So if you have questions about it, I really consider myself an educator. It's kind of a lot of learning to get up to speed with a reverse mortgage. And so I'd encourage you just to reach out to me maybe outside of here with that.
So John has just gotten you the money. You got a line of credit, and it is, I'll be right with you. It's a line of credit because mom needs in-home care. She will not consider an assisted living, or maybe mom and dad still live in the home. Melanie, what does that look like? Now that they have the money, dad is a veteran. He needs some help and mom needs help. They've got the money. What does that look like? What are your most common questions? And answer that for these people and let them know what in-home care coming in. Do they just have to take whoever you send, or do they get to choose their caregiver?
No, when we send somebody to your home, again, we do a fairly good job of coming out, doing the assessment, understanding what your needs are. What are you looking for? What are you trying to accomplish? And are there safety concerns? Are they, a fall risk? Is it, we have some clients that are partly mostly independent, but they kind of forget to turn the stove off. So we want someone in the home to make sure that, be there while they're cooking, but make sure that mom's going to turn off the stove. Or the most likelihood of someone falling or having an accident in the home would be during taking a shower, getting dressed in the morning. A lot of the issues will become around medication. So medication reminders. Did mom take her medication? Sometimes, an elder will not remember if they took their medication and either not take it or take it again. So just having somebody around to make sure, yes, mom took her medication and she took her medication on time. Let's make sure we have somebody there with her when she's going to take a shower. She's able to shower herself, but we want somebody there with her when she's getting in and getting out, so she's not going to fall. Someone's there with her and helping her get dressed, although, because what we want is for you to age in place as gracefully as possible. And the most that you can do for yourself, the better. We're not there to take your independence. We're there to help you stay independent. So we want you to continue to do the things that you can do and help you just make sure that you're going to be safe when you do them, so you don't have that fall. Because that one fall could end you in the hospital, or now you've broken a hip and you're not going to recover from it, and you're going to be bedbound. So
We're trying to avoid that, Melanie. Let's don't put that out there.
yes, so that's why when we recommend, having someone in your home to help you, those are the areas of which someone is most likely to hurt themselves. In and out of the shower, getting dressed, are they taking their medication on time and taking it properly?
Excellent point, Melanie. What do we do, Erica? How do we stop falling out of the shower? Slipping in the tub, cooking? Erica, do you have any suggestions what people can do to their home now that they have the money? They have in-home caregivers that have witnessed some things and the family is concerned. What do we do, Erica?
There's a lot of things to do. But yes, the number one place where falls happen in the home is the bathroom. So making sure that your bathroom is properly equipped. And the best thing to do is to remove the lip of the shower entirely, if possible, to modify it. But if not, there's equipment that can do so. There's lots of different options to put a little track that a chair slides on. Grab bars are like the new safety belts. So you need to have grab bars all throughout your bathroom. But one consideration that sometimes people don't make before they start all this work is the bathroom in a place where they can always access it. So you want to make sure that if your bathrooms aren't on your first floor, if you don't have a master ensuite bathroom and bedroom downstairs and you're doing it upstairs, you want to consider your access at all stages of life. So if you remodel your bathroom upstairs, make sure you're prepared to put in a stair lift later, or a vertical platform lift, which is kind of like a more industrious elevator, less expensive elevator. So consider your points of egress, your access, and your bathroom and bedroom, and making sure that they're together, functional, and all cohesive, no matter what your mobility level is. And that means whether you're walking with a walker or using a wheelchair or a power chair. So,
Erica, how does someone start this? Somebody had an almost oopsie. I'm fine, but I'm a little concerned showering. I'm not there yet. Do they have someone like you come out and assess their home? Is there a cost involved in that?
Yeah, you absolutely want to do a home assessment and have an expert come out. We come out and do home assessments. It's essentially a no cost assessment when you become a client. So we charge $185 to come up to the home, but it goes towards the purchase of product in your home. And it's really important to know, not just, I need grab bars, but where, but then also, are my lights okay? Are my transitions okay? Carpet to tile, making color distinctions can be helpful. Changing your light bulbs out to higher Kelvin bulbs that look more like daytime light versus yellow, mood light. And you can have various lights in your room. Make sure you add that, we call it task lighting. Make sure you add that bright light for when you're getting up and down, so you can make sure you're not tripping on something that's in the corner of your eye. Yeah, and then for the kitchen, it depends how active you'll be in there, but bringing things like changing your stove out, if you do, to having the knobs at the front of the stove and not reaching over the back to stoves you control where you're reaching over the flame. Having the double open refrigerator where you can be standing and access freezer and fridge versus bending down really low to do the pull-out drawers. So there's a lot of tips and tidbits we can give that we do and don't do. We can refer to contractors, a lot of modifications in-house we do, but what we want to see is you set up for success and have a full plan no matter what mobility level you have at home.
So Harmony Home Medical Supply, definitely call her. Her team will come out. Yes, ma'am. How do the rentals work at Harmony?
We rent lots of things. So we rent beds and lift chairs and rolling shower chairs, scooters, wheelchairs, all of it. And another consideration is the bed. Like a lot of people feel they'll have a fall or they'll have an incident, a hospital stay, and they feel they're not ready for a high-low bed, a hospital bed or an adjustable bed. So you can rent it and try it. And then if you like it, you can buy it. But know that you can set up your spaces in a beautiful way that's still functional for care. So we have high-low adjustable beds. We have elegant grab bars. We have a lot of things you can do in your home to plan for safety and accessibility before you have an incident that doesn't make you feel like you're living in a hospital. They're still beautiful. Yeah.
And
we
then you
deliver
provide
them.
delivery?
We do everything white glove. It's called deliver, set it up and service it. You know, a lot of online shopping stuff is this brown box to the door. And we've been asked to do that. We get really close to that same brown box pricing, but with the full service. And what we found when we experimented with that for a few months of doing a brown box service is that our clients do not do well with brown box. They inevitably call and they need help setting up, or the chair's not working for some reason. And it may be simple. Maybe the neutral switch is engaged, but they didn't know. You know, we come out there and we help take care of that. It's really a kind of a product category and industry where having someone help you with the decisions and help you with the service is really important. for it
So
to turn
at the
out right.
time of ordering, you would include their installation
Yeah.
of items that require that.
Yeah, installation, warranty service, home visits.
Excellent.
We have a shop. Yeah, we have a store in Kearney Mesa, just about 5 miles from here. And we also have one up in Vista. And we are called the Toys R Us for the aging adult. It is pretty fun to come see the different options and those different beds that we talked about and lift chair recliners and transfer devices that can be integrated pretty seamlessly into your home. Harmony.
Harmony Home Medical Supply. The information is in the packet we provided. Sandy's with Bankers Life. This young lady had a question regarding reverse mortgage, just to circle back around and we'll cover some of your questions.
I was wondering where the company that lends the money gets their money back.
Sure. Yeah. So basically what happens on a regular mortgage, the bank or the mortgage company gives you the money and there's a payment schedule and you pay it back over time. With a reverse mortgage, what happens is they advance whatever money you take, and then there are finance charges that accrue over time and maybe additional advances. So you have an outstanding loan balance. And the reason they call it a reverse mortgage is because it amortizes in reverse. Rather than you making payments to pay it off, what you're doing is you're receiving advances from the reverse mortgage, and then you are essentially allowed to defer repayment. So the loan itself will become due and payable when there's a maturity event, which essentially is at the end of the loan. And a maturity event could be something like the last borrower dies, then it would trigger the loan balance to be paid off. And there's a whole process in place. You can get up to a year to pay it off. A lot of times what the heirs or the children will do is they'll list the house for sale and sell it. And then any remaining equity in the house, let's say the house is worth $1 million and the reverse mortgage is 400,000, that would come out of the sale, just like a regular mortgage, but it would get paid back at that time. Now, if the estate wanted to keep the house, maybe keep the house in their family, the heirs or the children could get their own mortgage or use other assets to pay off the accumulated loan balance, and the house would be free and clear or with a mortgage in their name, and then they could keep the house. So it does not have to be sold, it just has to get repaid back. But meanwhile, during the whole time that you have the loan, which is usually for an older homeowner in retirement, you don't have the burden of making that monthly mortgage payment like you would. So it can really, it's been a godsend for a lot of people being able to lower their expenses or have access to some of the wealth in their house.
Thank you, John, for clearing that up. This young lady has a question for Melanie regarding home care.
do the home care people come in just for a few hours a day, or do they live there?
It'll be just, it'll be how you set it up, because you can do live-ins. Or if you just want a 4-hour shift and you want them to come 4 hours every other day, or 4 hours, a couple days a week. So it's basically, we'll work with you on what your schedule is and what your needs are and how it best, fits you. When we come out and do the assessment, we have what you call a service agreement that you sign. So it's not a contract. So we set up an initial schedule with you, and say a week goes by and you're like, well, this schedule isn't really working out and I'd like to make an adjustment. Then we sit and talk to you of what the adjustment is on the schedule that you're looking for.
Thank you, Melanie. One more question.
John, are we able to deed our home to our people that are inheriting the home ahead of time? Give my home.
Okay,
to
so what happens, you could create a trust. So I would say probably 2/3 of the people I do reverse mortgages for have their house in a trust. So with the reverse mortgage, during the life of the loan, the borrower has to be the owner of the property. Now, you could add one of your children to title now, but there may be some tax advantages to waiting to do that later. And that's something I can kind of give you the questions to ask, like to an attorney or to a CPA. But the house belongs to you. It never belongs to the bank unless they foreclosed, right? Which is, it almost never happens, but unless you, so during the life of the loan, it belongs to you. So you can't deed the house today when you have the reverse mortgage and take your name off, if that's your question.
She says there's no mortgage, it's paid for. So not with a reverse mortgage, just regular mortgage.
So are you talking about a reverse mortgage or just?
No, she says no mortgage paid for. That's more of a
Yeah, that's
question
more of
for
a question
Tom.
for a CPA or for Tom, because there's potential tax reasons.
As John mentioned, there's tax consequences to that. So typically, if you can hold on to your property for your lifetime, the major benefit is that when you would pass away, your house would get what's called a full step up in basis for capital gains purposes. So if you bought it for $200,000 many years ago, and when you pass, it's worth $1 million, there's $800,000 of gain. So if you would have given that to your child before you passed, and they wanted to then sell it either then or after you pass, they'd have that $200,000 basis still that you had. So when you give it, you give your basis. So they'd have to pay capital gains on $800,000. Whereas if you would have simply held it till you passed away in your trust, it would pass probate free. It would get a step up. The basis would go from the 200 to the $1 million current market value. And now they could sell it capital gains free. And there's other reasons if you're going to live in it, if you give it to your child and they have a legal setback, lawsuits, bankruptcy, divorce, it's their property. And that can be used to settle their debts, the house that you thought you were going to live in. So that's another reason. It's good to keep control.
Sounds like you need an appointment with Thomas Lawler, estate planning attorney. So, oops.
And Kim.
Oh, good. Can you hang on to it for 1 second? Because that's our next transition. And you'll be the first to answer because you're reading my mind. So now we've stayed at home as long as we can. The kids live across the country. It's getting to be too much for you to remain at home. It might be better for you to live someplace else, maybe a smaller space. You have a big 2-story, 6-bedroom home. Who needs that? You don't even see the upstairs anymore. All your friends are over at Ivy Park and you want to go there too. Oh, I'm sorry, what? The Glen. So what does that look like? We've got Mike Acuna, who does placement. And I'm sure all of you are curious about that. How do we get placed? We have Rick and Kim, who are senior realtor experts. And we need to know what that means because there's big differences between the realtor guy, my niece's friend of a friend, and somebody like Rick and Kim. So who wants to start? Maybe the family comes out, we need to value the home. What does that look like? Because then we need to call Mike. We don't know how much money we have. How are we going to afford placement? We can't have Mike looking yet until we know what we can afford. What's our budget? So Rick and Kim, how do you start that process? You get a referral or a call from a family. It's time to sell.
Well, a lot of times we get the call and it's not necessarily time to sell. They're just kind of wondering what the process would look like. And we start off with what's called a CMA, or comparative market analysis, which, we pull comparable sales in the neighborhood and we determine what the best sales price of your property would be based on that. Plus we would come out to the home and we would not inspect the home, but basically run through the home, take a look at what, have you done any improvements to the home? You can't hear me? Okay. Keep it close to my mouth. Okay, I will. Yeah, so we take a look at the home and we see what improvements your home has had recently. We compare that to the sales in the neighborhood. We also compare it. What's interesting is people say, "Oh, the house across the street sold for $1 million. How come my home is only worth, say, 800,000?" Well, the house across the street might have been completely remodeled, where your home hasn't. The house across the street might have a view to die for, whereas your home might not have a view. So it's really important to have a real estate professional come out and take a look at your home and see what your particular home might be worth, versus just comparing it to your neighbors.
So in this market, why is it better they call you for my senior mom who's ready to go, as opposed to, my sister's best friend's cousin guy, and he sold it in 3 days. It was great. What would be different about calling you as opposed to that person?
Well, typically seniors they're going to need a lot of other things besides just the sale of their home. As you can see, we belong to this group here who has, professions that can help you in a lot of different ways. There's also people that aren't here that Kim and I have contacts with. Sometimes people need, a downsizing specialist. So for instance, if somebody's going to be moving from a 2-story home into a single family home, or if they're going to be utilizing Mike's services and they're going to be transitioning to alternative care, something like that, they need someone that deals with all their stuff. So we have contacts with people that can go through and declutter your home. We have estate salespeople that can arrange everything to be sold, those kind of things. But another thing that's really important that Kim and I do, we have special training through the National Association of Realtors, and it's called Senior Real Estate Specialists, which we help protect the seniors. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but you probably all get mailers in the mail saying, "Oh, I'll buy your house for all cash. Don't use a real estate agent. You don't need to pay a commission." Those are scams most of the time. These are investors. They want to buy your house for a low price because they're going to turn around and make a profit on your home. It sounds great to not pay a real estate commission, but let me tell you, if there aren't buyers competing to buy your home, you're going to lose money. If someone is the only person in the transaction and they're offering you this much and there's no one competing, you're losing money. So that's the most important thing. And there's other scams other than that. There's quick claim deed scams. There's bait and switch scams, which, I'm not going to get into all the different scams, but there are a lot of scams and they're targeted towards seniors. And that's the scary part. And that's why we are advocates for seniors.
Do you perform certain things? It could be minor, maybe, paint or reinforcing a wall that may be degraded. Does that help improve the price of the home?
Well, yeah. So when we go through a home, we're going to do an assessment of the home and we're going to say, we can sell it in its present condition, and this is basically what it'll sell for. But if you're willing to put a little time, elbow grease, and some money into it, we can do these things and it'll probably sell for this amount. And that's where your profit comes in.
Excellent.
Well, and I was going to say, and sometimes they'll say, should we replace flooring, carpet, whatnot? And sometimes it isn't worth it because a lot of people will buy a home and not like your decision and they'll rip it up. So we literally fight for every dime you have in your home. I mean, we bulldog through it. He's a great negotiator. But that's our whole purpose is to protect you guys and get you everything you get out of that. Because for a lot of people, it's their last big asset. And if you do have to go into a property somewhere else, you need that money. Bottom line, it isn't about the commission. You know what? It's about getting you guys what you deserve. You've lived in that house, it's your home, and we get you every dime we can get out of it. We squeeze every dime out of them.
Thank you, Kim. Great answer. This lady here has a question.
Well, that was my question.
Awesome.
I have a little add on to that. I don't see anyone here. I mean, a lot of us need a handyman now.
Well, absolutely. You're feel free to call us. We have a whole litany of contractors in every modality, and you don't have to utilize us to sell your home for us to refer you someone. I mean, we're out here to help you. It doesn't matter if you utilize us or not. Yeah.
Good to know. I didn't know that.
Let me
Yay.
say one other thing, and I want to. John didn't state this about reverse mortgages. A lot of times, fairly often, we have clients that want to move and downsize, and you can utilize a reverse mortgage to purchase a home as well. So you don't necessarily have to have the equity. You don't necessarily have to stay in the home and utilize your equity. You can sell your current home, take that equity, put it into a reverse mortgage, to buy the next home as well. So John and I team up quite often to do those type of things as well. So
sounds like you're going to get a lot of phone calls.
Yeah, could be.
So is it worth it to fix up your home when you're going to get a reverse mortgage?
That's a good question. Not necessarily, because what's going to happen is they're going to send an appraiser out to your home. So it's just a matter of how you want to live in that home. Do you want to live in it in a fixed step manner, or do you want to live in it in its current state where it's at? But you can utilize a reverse mortgage to pull cash out of the house to fix it up, and then turn around and sell it and utilize another reverse mortgage to purchase the next as well. And you probably could, I shouldn't say probably, you could end up being in a better situation because you could sell it for more in a fixed up state than a rundown state, for sure.
That's where the realtor and their expertise comes in when they assess your home, because you need most of that money when you call Mike, because he needs to know what the budget is. Now, a lot of questions we get is, who pays Mike? I'm not paying for a guy when my daughter can get on the internet and find me a place. What's the value of Mike? Mike, can you please speak to that? What is your place in this? Because now we're getting placed. How do you start the process once you get a call or a referral? Maybe Rick and Kim have met with someone and they're like, okay, we know, they know how much we're going to get with the house. Their goal is to move mom to, where her friends live. Can she afford it? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, finances is just really one part of the equation, right? Because when we talk about moving from the home you might have been in for 60 years, and this is probably going to be the last biggest decision you're ever going to make in your life, where are you going to go to kind of have possibly your final years, and you want to be, comfortable and confident with that decision. So my job after doing this 10 years is to really be your guide through this process, because I always say this isn't something we went to school for, we talk about at dinner, right? It's not really fun to talk about. It's a very taboo subject. So for me, what I bring to the table is the knowledge and wherewithal to guide you through from A to Z, like I said. So my job is to start with an assessment, just like a lot of my colleagues do. I really need to learn what's going on. What's your story, right? From a medical perspective, from a social perspective, from the financial perspective. There are hundreds of communities here in San Diego County, and my job is to find one that fits for your certain lifestyle and what you're looking for. So I really take the time to converse with you and learn about what's going on. So then I can take those 100 options and ideally bring them down to like 3 or 5, right? We don't want to bombard you because the next goal is to then go out on some tours. We want to see these places. Let's check them out. Let's ask them questions. Let's maybe have lunch. Food's really important.
So wait, Mike, we can go with my grandma and we can have lunch and walk around and nobody's going to try to sell me anything?
That's true. They're there to learn, like I want to, your story. Can you fit into this community, right? And from a community perspective, we have from small, medium, and large. So from a small perspective, we have what we call residential boarding care homes. These are homes that are in your neighborhood. You probably notice them if there's a wheelchair ramp going up to it. Majority of them have up to 6 residents. They offer private and shared rooms. Next, board and care homes.
Mike, why don't you cover that? Start with independent living and explain to the folks all the way to say what skilled nursing looks like. And that's,
Yeah, we call this the
What are the
continuum of care, right? So kind of at the starting level, if you were looking to move from your home, we have independent living. This isn't licensed by the state of California, but they bring in a lot of seniors, usually between 55 and 70. It's a more active community. There's more options for activities. They do a lot of outings, a lot of dining room kind of experiences, 3 meals a day. Some facilities or communities let you bring in care if you need that as well. And when there comes a time when maybe that is not affordable or you're looking for another kind of transition is what we call assisted living. Within assisted living, you have 2 types of communities. One is the boarding care home, which is underneath the assisted living umbrella. And then you have larger kind of hotel style buildings. These can range anywhere from 50 to 150 residents. And boarding care homes, majority of them are up to 6 people. So if you're someone that needs a lot of intimate care, as I say, you need a lot of hands-on care, you're bedridden, or maybe hospice is involved, a boarding care home would be a good option because you get more hands-on care with 2 to 3 caregivers there 24/7. Those are regulated by the state of California. Going into the larger type of community assisted living, offer basically the same types of services. If from hands-on, do you need help with bathing, incontinence care, going to the restroom, do you need walking assistance? They have caregivers there as well 24/7 to take care of you and make sure that you're safe. We're trying to avoid falls. Because really in my situations, there's 2 ways that you're going to be going into this, right? We call it the push to move and the pull to move. I get a lot of calls from families who has a loved one that had a fall. They go to the hospital, they're there for a certain amount of time, and then they're given a prescription to go to skilled nursing facilities. This is what you probably know, and it's called a convalescent home. This is where you go to get medical care, rehab every day, and then what happens is the social services or case management says, hey, your dad needs 24/7 care and you're out of here in 3 days. Here's a yellow book of facilities. Good luck. That's where I get called in. I know these places. I know the market rates. I'm here to help negotiate, answer your questions, and really save you a lot of time because you can go on the internet, and I call it the senior housing maze, and you're just going to get lost and stuck. So by working with someone on the ground, you're going to have someone who's been to these homes, who knows the owners, and can basically advocate on your behalf to find something that's within what you might be looking for.
what is your fee for this service, Mike? What are you going to charge these people?
That would be $0, free, another way to say it. So if and when you find a place through my service, that place pays me a fee for helping you and for helping them. A lot of communities rely on placement agents like myself in order to stay in business. We are able to give our own recommendations. We'll go with you and escort you on tours. We'll be able to answer questions from you from an objective point of view, because usually what I find on tours is families are really overwhelmed and they're really pulling from their brain on what questions to ask. So by having someone else there, it's really about focusing on to see if your family, if you can see yourself being there. So been doing it 10 years, happy to help you if you need the help.
One
That is
second, man.
me.
Stand by.
Yes.
'Cause I'm already on the back row and, I'm not getting any younger here.
I'm just curious. I have some friends that just moved to the Glen. Why is there $1 million buy-in? And what does that mean?
Yeah, this is what we call continuing care retirement communities. Basically, in a nutshell, because you're basically giving, you could be giving, your home or the value of the home to a certain contract, because the way it works is you come in at an independent level. These are basically like campuses where they have independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing and memory care all in one place. So the idea is you start kind of when you're more independent, and by using those funds, you sign this big contract to go in, and then you're kind of set for life in a sense, so that when the time comes, you're right then and there so that you can move on over to the other section of the community and kind of make that transition a little bit more easier.
So when she's all out of money, she's lived a lot longer than anybody thought, they're going to keep her there for free.
Well, all of that's planned in advance.
So that's
right?
in that contract.
Yeah. I mean, they're not about to just take someone on and not understand what that roadmap looks like. So, and if that time comes when, I also help people from a financial level, from low income to high income. We don't just work with people who have money. We do a lot of pro bono work to help individuals with Medi-Cal. There is a program called the Assisted Living Waiver. It is more directed towards patients who are at skilled nursing, because California said, you know what, it's cheaper to have them in assisted living than paying the skilled nursing rates. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But you do need to be at a skilled nursing facility for more than 60 days, 60 days. And then we can get you on a program to help subsidize that cost for assisted living.
I think a lot of you have a lot more questions for Mike, and he's in our brochure, Mike Acuna placement. We're going to move on to our last participant and panelist, Kim Phillips. We can come back to any questions, I promise. I just want her to have a chance, because everybody thinks this is probably the most uncomfortable part. I was just having a conversation with her about my own stuff. Kim Phillips works for Dignity. She provides your end of life preparations. Is that a good way of putting it? Kim, please let the people know what you do and why it's important to start this process while you have clarity, so your children aren't put in a position to make certain decisions for you that you may not want.
Well, I'm open to answer any questions. A lot of people don't like to talk about their final expenses. It's a difficult conversation for some. I actually do both. My office is down at Glen Abbey. So when I say both, I mean, I help people with pre-planning. So people who need to buy cremation plans, funeral plans. We have 14 mortuaries in this market, 4 cemeteries. I can represent all of them. I do come to people's homes. I can meet with you at your place, or you can come to me down at Glen Abbey. But I do everything from pre-planning, and I help families who have lost loved ones. So I do serve families, help them with their funeral plans. And often when people come in without arrangements, it becomes an issue, right? Because then there's, what did they want? Who's going to pay for it? Well, you get half and I get half. We've had major blowouts in the hallway. It's a challenge. So it is nice to get what you need done. I was kind of looking at, the situation. This is actually my first time with this group. They let me in recently, and I thought to myself, it's interesting. We all have car insurance, maybe homeowners insurance. There's all kinds of different types of insurances we've probably acquired throughout our lives. We don't always use them, but there's not one of us in this room, including the panel here and myself, that doesn't need a final expense. And so it's better to get it done early. It helps with inflation. You put it in with your paperwork, your final expenses, your living trust. You throw it over your shoulder and you keep on living. That's kind of what it's for. And also Dignity. A lot of people say, well, what if I move? Well, that's what I love about this company. They're in 45 states. Everything you buy from them is transferable. The money is actually held with an insurance company to protect the consumer's money, and also cemetery. So it's so much easier to go purchase your final resting place for your family, because that's where they're going to be coming to visit and, express their love after you're gone. So it's so much easier to buy that in advance than to wait till someone passes. It's just a little overwhelming. So,
Kim,
Yes.
this young man has a question for you.
yes.
I forgot what it is being called a young man. Actually, I have a quick question for John. Did you get to meet the Fonz or Tom Selleck? Did you get to meet the Fonz or Tom Selleck? Being in the reverse mortgage business? No? Okay. Yeah. All right. My question for you, do you bundle transportation into your packages if a body has to be moved interstate?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Do you bundle transportation to move bodies around if necessary from
What'd you
state to
say?
state?
Oh, yes, that's part of the plans. Yeah. If you're, I say to people sometimes, everyone needs a funeral plan, right? When they say, well, I'm just going to do cremation. Well, that's still considered a funeral plan. So we can call it a cremation plan. That's not a problem. But yes, the pickup, if you will, to pick up the loved one is in
I'm
the
not being,
package.
sorry, I'm not being clear. How about to New York State?
Oh, yeah, we
No.
actually, we do have, if you purchase a funeral plan, even a simple cremation plan, you can purchase travel protection in which they cover the entire United States. So if you happen to be traveling, they can bring you back to the state where you're going to be cremated full body, which I think is a big deal because, even if my mom is going to be cremated and she's on a cruise somewhere or something, I want to see my mom one last time. So that's kind of a big deal. It's a travel protection. And we sell that exclusively when you purchase your funeral plan or cremation plan, whatever you like.
Kim, if you pre-purchase any part of this, and again, I'm not an expert, is there any value in that? I mean, do you kind of own property when you buy a plot at a cemetery?
Yeah, it is kind of like buying a future home. You definitely, if buying cemetery and a place to be laid to rest, whether you're cremation or traditional, it's important to get it done early. These cemeteries, I won't say they're filling up, but I mean, think about it as regular real estate. You want to buy something you really want. You want to buy it at a cemetery where you want your family and friends to come and feel safe coming after hours for Mother's Day or Father's Day or your birthday. There are some differences out there. I've seen all the cemeteries in the market. I know what Glen Abbey has to offer. I also represent El Camino, which is right here in Mira Mesa, and we have one up in Escondido. And there's some differences. Knowing those differences in advance is a big deal as to where your family is going to be going for those things. So yes, you lock in prices today. Prices will never go down in the cemetery, unlike I feel like, regular real estate, it goes up and down. It's never going to go down. It's always going to go up. And when they lose their inventory, it's supply and demand. And so it becomes even more of an issue in the future.
So I buy in advance and it's a very popular cemetery.
Mhm.
They keep my spot
Yep.
until I pass on, even though I told everybody it'll be 60 and I lived in 98, that
Yeah.
my place is going to be there.
That your place will be
And
there.
it's not going to cost my family more money.
No, none at all. Not at all. Everything, the full package is sold. However you need to do it, we get it secured for you. It is real estate too. Sometimes people upgrade. So they might have, I've even seen people move mom who's
So
already
you
laid
have
to
a s-
rest. So, they come into money, the kids do, and they want a family estate and they'll move mom. So there's so much flexibility in pre-planning.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions? Here, let me start with this young lady.
Is there any alternative to cremation and burial?
Are you
Alternative
referring
to cremation and burial.
Are you referring to something like obscure, like a water burial or something? Yeah.
Maybe you're a native Indian or something. Maybe they do
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah, we hear these stories and read them just like you, but it's nothing that, the traditional funeral community is involved with. Mhm. My parent company is SCI. It's a big company. They're the largest funeral home in Northern America. So you'll find that you'll see Dignity. If you look up a website near a mortuary near you and you see Dignity, that's one of the locations that I represent and can help you to pre-plan with. So, and like I said, I can come to you. You can give me a call. My information's in the flyer there. And I just say, get it done. We all need it. We're not getting out of here without one.
Kim, is this true? friends get together and they have a thing called a death cafe. Sounds interesting, huh?
Yeah,
What
I
are
like it.
death cafes about, Kim?
I don't know, but that sounds fun.
Oh my gosh. Rick, no, a death
You know
cafe
it?
is
You've
where
heard of
you
it?
invite a funeral, a person who helps you make these arrangements, and she talks to you intimately about all your many options. You may want to look into that, girl. What do you got to say, Rick?
Well, I was just going to say that I've been to several death cafes, but it doesn't involve funerals or anything like that. It's a philosophical conversation that people have revolving around death.
Well, the ones I've been to have someone like Kim. Often there's a hospice provider there because there's all kinds of questions regarding that. But along those lines, this lady had a question.
If you've donated your body to University of California, what's the process of getting from dead to there?
If you've donated your body to the University of California, what does that process look like in terms of your final?
Well, I've heard these before. People donate their body for, science or something like that. So usually those plans come with cremation. They're doing it for you. Now, whether you want to have your family have a place for your ashes to be laid to rest, then that's still something you would want to pre-plan for.
Part of their program is they cremate you and dump you in the ocean.
Part of their program is they pick you up, cremate you, and throw you in the ocean. That's what she
Right.
said.
After they're finished with the cadaver, the science.
Yeah. Yeah,
After-
the
After
reality
they've
is there's-
harvested your parts,
Yeah.
they
they-
agree to do that extent. Can a family include your services for something more elaborate for what
Yes.
are the remains?
Well, sure. I mean, well, once again, they're going to do the cremation for you. There's no doubt about that. So let's say you have an urn or an urn at home. That happens a lot as well, right? I was just telling someone up here on the panel that I had a family walk into Glen Abbey, like my first month there, and they bought an urn at like a vet. I mean, not a vet, but like a thrift store. And they didn't realize there was someone in it. And I said, let me get my boss for you. So, I mean, the point is that people call us often saying, I have an urn at home. Do you have a place? So they want to have a place to lay them to rest. We do that all the time. That's not a problem.
All right, this young lady has a question and it may be on a previous topic.
I think I'm changing topics, but I'm on Medicare.
Oh.
I've got a husband at home who's mobily challenged, not very ill, but has lymphedema, so can't get around very much. So we're at the point that he doesn't want to go out for medical care. Can anybody provide me or suggest where I go to get a mobile lab, a mobile doctor, mobile, whatever my daughter managed to find a lymphedema specialist that'll come in and do massage, but that's $450 an hour. I'm looking for Medicare to pay for it.
Does Medicare cover any of these type of services to your knowledge, Sandy?
So if the mobile doctor is appointed with Medicare, then their services should be complimentary because it's already in your plan. I do know a couple of doctors that are mobile doctors. I'm not sure if they're appointed with Medicare, but I can find out and give you that information. Okay.
This lady has a question.
Okay. Melanie, you said that you have a 4-hour minimum. Is that right?
Hang on one second, Melanie. You need the microphone because I can't hear you at home.
Okay, so
And the second part is,
how much does it cost?
So we have a 4-hour minimum and it depends on the area, but it's anywhere between $40 an hour to $36 an hour. 36 to 40.
Set up long-term health insurance coverage.
No, so long-term care is over here. So
I
we
think
are,
what she's asking, do you accept long-term care policy?
we do
and
accept
payment?
long-term care. Yes.
Do the billing.
We will do the billing. Yes.
Sandy will get you the policy. Melanie will accept it and bill them.
Correct.
We're a one-stop shop here, people.
Correct.
Okay, then I have another question. The senior placement services, Mike, are like a place for mom, right? It's comparable to that.
Mike, tell us how you're different than a place for mom.
I could talk to you forever, but
We've got 6 minutes, 4 minutes.
yeah. I just say a place for a mom is really good at internet marketing. They pump a lot of money and invest a lot of money into that to get you to fill out forms. The TV commercials, Joan London. But you fill out the form, and then what happens is that basically gets turned into spam because they'll send it to a lot of facilities, and then those facilities start calling you all the time, as well as the person, or I don't know where they're located when you talk to someone. But they really tend to focus more towards the larger places. When someone like me on the ground, I say in the trenches, works with smaller places that can be more cost effective. A lot of individuals don't know about boarding care homes, and that's where I can step in to really help guide you. You'll have my cell phone 24/7, answer any questions. Good luck trying to get a hold of someone over there that's not local. That's the biggest thing, is local. It's the biggest difference.
They're
Correct.
local.
Exactly. Yeah.
And a place for mom is being investigated by Congress right now. So if you actually look into it, because they've become more of a business to where they're looking at, as he said, the communities pay for the placement. So they're actually looking at the communities that are paying them the most money, not necessarily the communities that are the best for you.
I will never tell you where to go. My job is to guide you so you make the decision for your loved one.
Okay, the last question I have is between the attorney and the fiduciary. Just for clarification, the estate that we have is made up of two things, a will and a set of medical directives. Is that correct? Simple. Is that
You're
I think she's
saying,
asking, is that good enough?
that? I'm asking a clarification in terms of what the words mean. You're an attorney. I'm not an attorney. So you go off and you leave me behind. So is a will part of an estate? And secondly, is the estate part of medical directives? Those two parts equal an estate.
so you can have an estate plan. And in the estate plan, you'll typically have numerous documents that each do their own thing. So in an estate plan, you'll have a trust typically, you'll have a will, you'll have a medical directive, you might have a HIPAA release, financial power of attorney. So you'll have all those things. So your estate is everything you own inside or outside of a trust. And you'll have various documents to cover all those things while you're living and maybe incapacitated and after you're gone. So you should have lots of different documents to cover all the bases.
Want that so that we don't end up in probate. So, the bottom line is, if you've had your estate planning done, you're pretty much, as long as you keep it up to date, you're pretty much clear from going to probate.
Yeah, the key is you set up your plan, and the other major part is that you get your assets re-registered to your trust, so that, because the trust can't really do much for you if the assets aren't inside that, inside of your trust. Yeah.
I have the fiduciary. Usually fiduciaries are either if somebody dies and there's nobody to take over, or the kids don't want to do it, you get hired. Or if you're a single person and you don't have anybody to take over management of your estate, you're hired.
You mean if there's only one person? Well, I thought about when everybody was talking is a fiduciary can work with you on various levels. If, for example, several of my clients, one of them, Rick and Kim, sold the house, then the relocation person put him into a assisted facility, and he realized, I don't know how much this money's going to last. Can somebody help manage my money? So I manage his money for him in that sense. So it doesn't have to be that you die or whatever. It can be used as a power of attorney for a certain thing. It can be used for an agent. It can be used for financial management, budgeting to help you. I have a woman client who brought me in because her husband is the one that did all the books. So I went in and understood how he set up everything so that if he died before she did, they'd have a backup. So there's a lot of ways to use a fiduciary on various levels.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, I'm coming.
Estates. If you've had an estate for a while and you want to update it, but you don't like the previous lawyer, would that be starting all over again to go to a different lawyer and just change a few things?
It depends. A lot of times it's how long has that plan been around and was it well done? And there's newer documents that come along. We have one called the assignment of digital assets that really wasn't a big deal or wasn't around years ago, but now with people have to get on your online accounts and get into your computer and recover lost passwords, and it's become kind of a problematic area. So there's a new document for that. So generally the attorney would look at what you have and then make suggestions. And sometimes it means a restatement of your trust. So it is a redo of the trust, but you keep the same name and the same date. So you don't have to re-register assets. It's still seen as the same trust.
Okay, anybody else have a question right now?
I'd like to say something just because I think it's important. It comes up a lot. I was asking him whether or not a living trust almost automatically includes an advanced healthcare directive. He said usually it does, which is good, but not everybody has a trust, right? If you don't own a home or if you don't have a trust or something, I just want to make sure people are aware that when we pass away and we bring you into our care, we automatically go to your next of kin. So if you are not married, if you don't have any children or something like that, we have to talk to the next of kin. If you don't have one, by all means, get an advanced healthcare directive. It's a simple document. You do not need a trust. You can have your best friend do it for you. They can become your person, and it's something you can get online. It can be notarized. It's a simple document. So it's definitely something very important. A lot of people don't realize that, and it sometimes becomes an issue. I just thought I'd bring that up.
Thank you. Another question I sort of heard as I was roaming around. Sandy also helps families with their Medicare policies. And there's always that hectic time, I think, between October and December. What if I don't like my current plan, or I have a diagnosis that my existing Medicare plan is not helping me with my treatment? What do I do, Sandy? Can I change? Do I have to? Does it cost me a lot of money? What does that look like?
So it depends on what plan you have now and what plan you want to go with. So that's why I do a lot of education to see what is the best fit for you. If you could afford to go with a supplement, and if you're healthy, if you're first going into Medicare for the first time, it could be you're 65, or maybe you're just retiring and you might be 72. That's kind of your golden ticket. As far as there's no health underwriting questions. But I really talked to the person this last fall. Most people know that Sharp had an issue with not taking Advantage plans anymore. So there were special rules this last fall for no health questions if somebody wanted to switch to a supplement plan from an Advantage plan. So it's just education at this point. And a lot of times it's very easy.
Keep Sandy's number, October through December. She's hard to get a hold of, but it's worth it.
October 15th to December 7th.
See, I was there. So another question I was asked, there's an interest in, for instance, Michelle, and we'll go down the line. What motivated you to get into this business? Was it a personal issue? What drove you towards being a fiduciary? And you're very specific, especially you deal with a lot of seniors. or they happen to be in this particular age range and this is your profession? What got you started?
Well, actually, two clients got me started. One was a financial planner and one was an estate attorney, and said, you should look into being a fiduciary, because they needed people that they could trust that would have their clients in mind. So because I had a business background of about 30 years, a lot of the skill set of a fiduciary, especially what I do, it just made sense to move into like a second career, and you're helping people. In my business advising, I was always helping people grow their business. And this way it's helping people in their later lives, especially to feel more comfortable. So that's what got me going.
Well, we're glad for those two clients. Mike, what turned your head towards the placement industry? Why do you like shopping for new houses for people in many different locations?
That would be because of my mother. She's a nurse case manager and she's worked in geriatrics for over 35 years. So I got to see from her working with more lower income seniors trying to stay at home through Medi-Cal and Medicare services. And then going to school for business, it just seemed like a good marriage. And ultimately it was helping people. So my brother and I with my mother created it. And 10 years later, here we are.
Thank you. Melanie.
So I had the privilege of being my grandmother's caregiver when I was going to college. So my grandmother was 80 years old when she had her legs amputated. And it took, it takes a village. So it took our whole family to take care of her. My mom has 3 sisters, and each of the sisters would take turns of watching and taking care of my grandmother. My mother actually graduated from college when I started college. So I didn't want her to have to quit her job as she was trying to help to take care of her mom. So I changed my schedule so that I could help take care of her. So my mom could work during the day and I would go to school at night. I did go on and have a career in 20 plus years out I was actually worked in government defense, military defense. And it got to a point where I really wanted to do something else and wake up every day that had more meaning. And I kind of came back to the position of where I was, of being able to take care of my grandmother. And when we were introduced to home care, when it got to the point it was too hard for all of us, it was the worst experience that my family actually had to go through. And so remembering that, I just, there's no family that should have to go through that experience when you're looking for care for your loved ones. And I figured that I could do it better. And we could put something together that was better, that we could help people out there. Also, spending 20 plus years working with the military, I worked really hard to make sure that we would be licensed to work with the VA. So we actually service a lot of our veterans here in the local community, which I now, take great pride in the fact that I started with them when they were young, as they started in the military, and now I can take the veterans through their end of life and be there for them and for their loved ones.
Thank you, Melanie Delgado with Right at Home, and they do a great job. John, we know most of your clients are not the 30 to 40 dynamic, unless they're probably very, very wealthy, so we know most of your clientele is probably serving more seniors than not.
Yeah, so a little bit about me. I began my mortgage career in 1995. And from 95 to 2009, I did traditional loans. And right around that, 2009 is when we had the great financial crisis. I switched jobs and I worked at a different company. And that's when I did my first reverse mortgage. And I have my real estate broker's license since 2003. I could do real estate. I've never done that. I haven't done a traditional loan since 2009. When I did my first couple reverse mortgages, it's such a unique product. I get to know my clients. There's things that people say you're so patient, because it's actually really hard to do reverse mortgages. I could be doing conventional loans, but I get a lot of satisfaction from helping people, educating them, holding their hands, getting to know their stories. And it's just a completely different world than the rest of the mortgage industry. And I entirely focus only on reverse mortgages for that reason alone. And if you go to my office, you'll see in my wall behind my desk in the credenza, all of these handwritten thank you letters and notes and things like that. And that's where I get incredible satisfaction.
I got interested in the long-term care and Medicare portion of insurance when a few years ago I became a senior. And my daughter actually lives out of the country, and my son and his wife live in another state. It's always the woman that takes care of somebody. So it would be my daughter-in-law wiping my butt, to put it bluntly. But they have 2 small kids. So do I really want to disrupt their family life? So it's something dear and dear to my heart to have long-term care for me. And then I got talking to a lot of people that did not have anything in place. And so this is something that I really, really advocate for, to have something, even if it's a small, simple policy that will protect at least part of your assets. Without that way, you can grow your retirement plan by using the long-term care insurance. And yeah, that's how I got started.
So I got started, well, this story goes way back. Into the early 90s, I was a platform speaker for a gentleman by the name of Robert Allen, who's a real estate investor. You probably, I don't know, you may have heard of him. He wrote many, many books in regards to real estate investing. Not only was I a platform speaker, but I traveled the country teaching investors real estate investment strategies. So after that gig ended, his company dissolved, and I won't get into the why. I basically got my real estate license in 1993 and have been practicing real estate for about 31 years now. But about 9 years ago, I got a phone call from one of the local San Diego real estate investment companies that was, they were teaching investors because it was a big fad about 9 years ago, it started, to invest in real estate. So I got a call from them because they found out that I worked for Robert Allen and they wanted me to teach their groups. It was a job I couldn't pass up. It was a lot of money involved. And I went to work for them for about 6 months until I found out what they were doing. They were sending out mailers targeting seniors. And for lack of a better word, it pissed me off. And I quit and I decided I'm going to advocate against these guys and I'm going to stick up for seniors because they're getting ripped off. And that's how I got involved in what I'm doing now. So.
I wanted to share real briefly before I said about me about the mobile doctor thing. You can Google mobile concierge doctors, and concierge medical doctors will allow you to have more prompt services. So you'll pay a little bit on top of what Medicare pays, but they can do add-ons. Like some will even do music therapy or massage for your husband's lymphedema. And I would also advocate to say, don't let your husband's world get too small. Like they make amazing mobility devices for your vehicle, power chairs, all the things, you know, that's what we do. And I love nothing more than to be able to help people open up that world again and get to the coffee shop and go to places they used to love to go to because all that technology exists. So, and I got in the business, I grew up in a medical equipment store that serviced Medicare and Medi-Cal only. It was an insurance-based store, which is what most of the stores were when I opened my store in 2008. And I went up there to help my mom as an adult because I didn't want to do that business. And she took me to measure people's homes and do custom chairs and home modifications. And I said, why don't you show this to people? She did it for a regional center in Medi-Cal. And she said, because insurance doesn't pay for it. And I said, well, they would still buy it. And she said, no, no one would buy this if Medicare doesn't cover it. And I said, I think you're wrong. And so I did a small booth at the Del Mar Fair, and that went really well. And then I did a little tiny shop on Convoy and then a little bit bigger shop. And now I'm my third iteration of a big shop where people look at equipment and shop it and they buy it regardless of Medicare covering it. And that's how I started.
Yeah, I never thought I wanted to be an attorney, so I'm not sure how I got here. Um, But I thought I'd get a law degree so I could get a job. And then when I graduated, I thought I might as well take the bar. Then when I passed the bar, I thought I might look up at school and see if there's any jobs. And there's an estate planning job. I thought that sounds pretty good. So I got hired and I'm still doing it. But as far as being an attorney, the part I like about is we're trying to keep people out of court. And so people like that. And that's a service I'm happy to give.
So my mom lived in Sun City and she was diagnosed with cancer. She wanted me to go over to the local mortuary and do her pre-planning. She wanted cremation. So my brother and I went over there and wasn't sure what I was going to expect. You know, you hear all these scary stories about mortuaries and there's always this man that's like 110 years old in a dingy old suit and just, you know, there was one car out front. I'm like, oh God, we're going in. Never been inside of a mortuary before. And when we went in there, it was actually a young guy. He was in his 30s and he was, you know, handsome and he was showing us around the place. And up there they have little rooms and stuff. And I said, oh, that's so interesting. It's like someone said here, it's really a sales job. Yes, it is a sales job. That is true. We're not going to lie about it, but we do all need something. And so I said, well, that's really interesting. But long story short, I did lose my mom, who was my best friend, really my foundation. I had a very tough time when I lost my mom, had to take off some major time out of work. I think at that time I had been doing advertising sales for like 25 years. It's definitely more my personality in that respect, but I've lost all my relatives. And when I look back on this whole situation, I feel like essentially I was brought there, you know, by a higher power, God, whatever you want to call it yourself. For me, it was, oh, my grandfather was military and he had passed away. My grandmother was at home with dementia for a good 6 years, bedridden. My mother with cancer. My father, I actually found him myself at home. He was deceased and I thought, interesting. I came across an ad for Glen Abbey and I said, literally the hair on my arms rose and I said, that's my job. They don't know it yet, but they're going to hire me. And so, but I wanted to help families. I could have just taken an outside sales job. Tomorrow I will be going into Glen Abbey and sitting at a desk. I work inside as well. And that was exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to help families who have lost loved ones, because yes, with my background, I can be organized and the attention to detail is important. I'm also a very strong person and I want to help families get through what is some of the toughest times for them. So that's why I do it.
Thank you, panel. And now me, last but not least, Candace Monroe, and I think I am the oldest one on this panel. I'm looking forward to retirement too. And I'm glad I have all this great information, but how I got started, I actually was an EMT. I was a paramedic and then I became an EMT. And I remember taking patients out of nursing homes who needed to go to dialysis, who were diabetic and they needed to go to their doctor's appointment and they would be wet. They were a diabetic and there was no food for them. And I knew they'd be gone for 4 hours. And I started getting a little bit pushy with the nursing staff, saying, I can't take your patient until you pack a lunch for him. Or I'd show up and they're, okay, he's ready for transfer. I'm like, he's not going like that. This gentleman is a veteran. He fought for your rights to work here. Please change him. I will call the doctor's office and tell them we're running late. Nobody cared. And this is a really long time ago. I'll just say it's over 25 years ago. But I risked being fired many, many times. But if I had not quit being a paramedic because my father had Alzheimer's and moved into the EMT position, I wouldn't have really known the treatment that our seniors were getting at that time and how people would just turn their heads and the nursing staff that kind of didn't care. And I just got pushy about it and I would refuse the transport if that client was not in good shape to travel. And then my boss, we did a great job and we basically had all what is known as the BLS service. And then I moved into a sales position at a very well-known multi-level community in La Mesa. And I knew every single resident's story and I watched them move in independently. And oftentimes they would spend their last days at our private pay skilled nursing, but they were treated like family. We had respect. My father was a veteran. My grandfather started out in the Army Air Corps and retired a 4-star lieutenant colonel. He had gone to battle. Every one of our veterans, whether they go to battle or not, they deserve all the benefits that are out there that are available to them. Without them, those men and women fighting for us, we would not have the freedom to stand here and have these conversations. So when clients do come to me about the VA benefit, yeah, I ask a lot of questions, but I got it. But the other reason is I can determine maybe where you're missing and you might need a referral. These are my people. This is who I refer to. I know they're going to take good care of you. They're going to call you back. They're going to respond right away. You're not going to get some flimsy sales job. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm going to continue as long as I can. I want to thank everybody that attended this event. Big round of applause for you guys. Thank you to my panel of colleagues who are my friends, but they are the best of the best. If you have any questions, please, please reach out to any of them. Yes, sir. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, don't leave yet. There is a raffle, but we're probably going to do that off of Zoom. I'd be correct. All right, for those of you not here, I'm sorry, because there's really good cards. Here, Michelle, you draw. Where are you, darling? All right, we'll get the attorney. He's handing out stuff. He's handing out money. All right, one more. Let's. Get back in here. You won. Go see Tom. He's got the gift cards.
Okay, and as a side note too, while we're doing this, we did put a feedback form in there. I think it says raffle ticket drawing, but it really is a feedback form. If you get the opportunity to fill that out, we definitely appreciate any feedback. We put a lot into this. So if you get a chance, maybe fill it out before you leave or while we're doing the drawing.
Carol Reevehart.
Dolores Sullivan. I want your top. Jeanette Cornacker. Ann Losden. Kathy Pierce. Barbara Lester. Our veteran, yay, bravo. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today and at home. And please feel free to reach out to any of these individual professionals. Oh, wait, we've got one more. Walter Hanig. Thank you so much.